The day my father laughed at my acceptance letter from the Berklee College of Music. I was standing in the kitchen doorway, still holding it, both hands shaking, the paper catching the light from the window above the sink. I had carried it home from the mailbox like it was something sacred. I thought maybe this time would be different. It wasn't. Berklee. He said the word the way you'd say a diagnosis. He didn't even reach for the letter. He just looked at it from across the counter, then looked at me, then looked back at his coffee. What are you going to do with that, Olivia? Play guitar at weddings? My brother was sitting at the table behind him. He didn't say anything. He just smiled into his cereal bowl, slow and satisfied, like a cat watching something small get cornered. That was the morning I understood my place in this family. Not the first time I'd felt it, but the first time I saw it clearly, like something coming into focus after years of blur. I was 22 years old, a full merit scholarship to one of the most competitive music conservatories in the country tucked in my hands, and my father had not even touched the paper. Let me back up, because none of this started in that kitchen. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, in the kind of house that looked fine from the outside. 2-car garage, good neighborhood, Thanksgiving with real tablecloths. My father was a civil engineer, third generation, proud of the family name in a way that came with invisible rules attached. My brother, 4 years older, already in his second year at Ohio State's engineering program, was the living proof that those rules worked. He was the blueprint. I was the flaw they kept trying to explain away. My mother played piano. Not professionally, not ambitiously, just for herself, on the upright Yamaha in the corner of the living room that everyone else treated like furniture. When I was 7, she sat me down on that bench and put my fingers on the keys, and something in my chest clicked open that has never fully closed since. I practiced every day before school. I practiced after dinner. I practiced until my father came to the doorway and said, in that voice he used, "That's enough for tonight." She died when I was 15. Ovarian cancer, 11 months from diagnosis to the end. Fast. Too fast for any of us to build the bridges we needed. After she was gone, the piano stayed, but the warmth around it didn't. I kept playing, partly because I missed her, and partly because it was the one place in that house where I felt like I could breathe. I was good. I knew I was good the way you know a thing before you have the language for it. My high school choir director, Ms. Alton, told me I had a compositional ear she hadn't heard in 20 years of teaching. I spent my junior and senior years submitting original pieces to regional competitions and winning most of them. I applied to Berklee early decision and got in on a merit scholarship, full tuition, room and board. And then I stood in the kitchen doorway holding the letter, and my father said, "Play guitar at weddings." My brother's name got toasted at dinner that spring. He'd made the dean's list again. My father raised his glass of Malbec and gave a little speech about the value of hard work, of choosing a path with a real future in it. I sat across from them and ate my chicken and counted the minutes until I could leave the table. I didn't go back to that house for Christmas. I told them I had a gig. I did, technically. I was playing the back room of a coffee shop in Boston for $40 and a free scone, but I needed to not sit across from that table and watch them act like I didn't exist. Berklee was 4 years of learning that I had been right about myself. I graduated with honors in music composition, a minor in music production. I had scored 2 short films, written a song that placed in an NPR Emerging Artist feature, and spent my last semester interning at a small but respected music licensing firm in downtown Boston. They didn't come to graduation. My father sent a card. It said, "Congratulations. Hope it works out." My brother didn't send anything. I'm 31 now. I want you to hold that, 31, because I need you to understand how many years of proving myself happened before the day I'm about to tell you about. Years of licensing placements, of pitching songs to music supervisors, of scoring indie films and documentaries, and slowly building something real. I had moved to Nashville at 27 because the licensing market there was better, and because sometimes you need 2,000 miles between yourself and the house you grew up in. Nashville is where I met Dominique. She was a music attorney, sharp as a blade, with an enormous laugh and zero patience for self-pity. She became my best friend in the way that feels less like choice and more like gravity. She was the first person who understood both the business and the art of what I did, who saw the craft in it, who said things like, "This bridge is doing something structurally that I've never heard before," and meant it. She was the first person since my mother who made me feel like what I was doing was legitimate. My father called me once in those years out of the blue in October of my 29th year. I almost didn't pick up. I don't know why I did. He said he and my brother were putting together a pitch for a real estate development firm that wanted a branded multimedia campaign. They needed original music. My brother had apparently told them he knew someone, not his sister, someone. My father's voice on the phone had that careful warmth that isn't warm at all, just strategic. "It would be a good opportunity for you," he said. "Get your name in front of some serious investors." I was quiet for a moment. I asked how much the budget was. He hesitated. "We'd work it out as we go," he said. "Keep it in the family." I understood immediately. They wanted free music. They wanted to use my 10 years of skill and reputation to make their pitch look polished. And they wanted to call it a favor. I could feel my brother's fingerprints on the whole thing, smooth and entitled. "No," I said. "Just that." There was a silence on the line. Then my father said, in that other voice, the one that arrived when pleasantness stopped working, "I don't know why you make everything so difficult, Olivia. It would have been a chance to do something useful." Something useful. I hung up. Dominique found me sitting on my kitchen floor 20 minutes later when she came by to drop off a contract I'd forgotten at the office. She didn't say anything. She sat down on the floor next to me, opened her bag, and produced a bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos. We ate them in silence for a while. "They wanted free music," I said. "Of course they did," she said. "That was the night I stopped waiting for them to see me." The candle I had kept lit, the small stubborn hope that maybe one day my father would look at what I'd built and say he was wrong. I blew it out, and something clarified in me. Something clean and cold and permanent. 18 months later, I got an email from a woman named Vanessa Cho. Vanessa was the head of creative development at Meridian Pictures, a mid-sized studio out of Los Angeles that had been producing prestige limited series for streaming platforms. She had heard my work on a documentary that had screened at Sundance, a quiet film about 3 generations of women in a Louisiana fishing town. I had scored it on a tiny budget and a lot of love. Apparently, it had traveled. She wanted me to score their upcoming limited series. 6 episodes, a story about a Dust Bowl-era family in Oklahoma, beautifully shot, deeply American. The kind of project that, if it lands, changes everything. We spent 3 months in correspondence and then 1 week in Los Angeles, working through themes and instrumentations and emotional architecture. It was the most creatively alive I had felt in years. The music I wrote for that series was the truest thing I had ever made, rooted in folk melody, in string arrangements that felt like memory and grief and prairie wind. The series was called The Weight of the Wheat. It aired in the fall. Within 2 weeks, it had become one of the most discussed streaming events of the season. The score was mentioned in every major review. The New York Times said the music transposed the series from historical drama into something approaching elegy. Vanessa called me from Los Angeles crying, which I had not expected, because Vanessa seemed like someone who did not cry. I was in Nashville at my kitchen table when the call came from the Recording Academy. I had been nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Score Soundtrack for Visual Media. I sat with that for a long time before I told anyone. The Grammy Awards ceremony was held in Los Angeles on a Sunday evening in February. Dominique flew out with me. She bought a burgundy dress that she referred to as business formal for a celebration I fully intend to cry at. And she wore it with the confidence of someone who has decided in advance that everything is going to go well. I did not know yet that my father and brother were going to be in that building. What happened was this. My brother had parlayed his real estate career into something genuinely large over the past few years. His firm was now backing several entertainment industry developments, new studio spaces, production facilities, a mixed-use creative district in Burbank. He had been invited to the Grammys as the guest of one of his investors, a music executive who held several seats in the business section. My father had come along because my father went where my brother went. I didn't find out until I was already inside, standing near the bar in the pre-ceremony reception, when I turned and saw my father's face across the room. He saw me at the same moment. His expression was complicated in a way I hadn't seen before, not hostile, not warm. Something in between, like a man trying to recalibrate. He lifted his chin in that way he had, the acknowledgement that isn't really one, the nod that says, "I see you and have decided how to feel about you in the next 3 seconds." He smiled, the same smooth smile from the cereal bowl 17 years ago. "Olivia," my father said, reaching me first, "didn't know you'd be here." "I'm nominated," I said. He nodded. A pause. "Right, I heard something about that." Something. I had been featured in the Los Angeles Times. Dominique had sent me the link. It was a full page. My brother arrived at his elbow. "Look at that," he said. "Little sister at the Grammys." He said it like he was talking about a child who had drawn something on the refrigerator. Dad and I were just saying we should all get together sometime. Long overdue. I looked at him. I looked at my father, and I felt nothing that surprised me. No rage, no longing, no desperate need to be recognized. Just a clear, flat knowledge of exactly who these people were and who they had always been. "Enjoy the show," I said, and I walked back to Dominique. She had watched the whole thing from 10 feet away. When I reached her, she handed me a glass of water and said nothing, which is what made her extraordinary. The ceremony was long and brilliant and overwhelming, and I remember only pieces of it. I remember the light on the stage. I remember the woman sitting next to me, a composer I had admired for years, who squeezed my hand when our category was announced without me asking her to. I remember that when they called my name, I did not immediately understand it was happening. Dominique had to nudge me with her elbow. Hard. I walked to that stage in a way I cannot fully describe except to say that my legs moved and I let them. I reached the microphone and looked out at 3,000 or 4,000 people in the dark. And the first thing I felt was not triumph. It was grief. Clean, finished grief for the girl who had practiced piano before school every morning so she could show her father that she was worth something. I took a breath. "I want to thank Vanessa Cho and the entire Meridian team," I said. "I want to thank Dominique, who has kept me honest and fed for 4 years." There was laughter. "And I want to thank my mother, who put my hands on a piano when I was 7 and told me to listen. I've been listening ever since." I did not thank my father. I did not thank my brother. I did not acknowledge them at all. What I did not know, standing at that microphone, was that a camera in the 4th row had caught the moment my name was called and panned to the business section, where my father and brother were sitting. The footage was not aired live, but it was captured by several people on phones. And by the following morning, it had found its way onto social media with enough context that the internet filled in the rest. My father's expression when my name was announced was not anger. It was not pride. It was the face of a man watching something he had written off for dead get up and walk across a stage. My brother's face was worse. His smile had not adjusted fast enough. For one unguarded sextant, the smooth indifference cracked, and underneath it was something raw and small and unbecoming. Backstage, while I was still holding the award and trying to understand that it was real and solid in my hands, a woman I did not know came and stood next to me. She was in her late 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of composed authority that doesn't need to announce itself. She had a Grammy of her own from what looked like decades earlier. "Maggie Thorne," she said, extending her hand. She was one of the most decorated producers in the history of the Recording Academy. I had studied her work in college. She looked at my award and then at me. "I listened to the Weight of the Wheat score 3 times before Sundance," she said. "The motif you build around the youngest daughter's storyline, the way you suspended it in the 5th episode and didn't resolve it until the final scene. That's not technique, that's poetry." I didn't say anything. My throat had closed. "Your instincts are the real thing," she said. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She paused, and then she said, almost as an aside, as if she already knew what I hadn't told her, "And they will try." She shook my hand again and walked away. Dominique found me 10 minutes later, still standing in the same spot. "Who was that?" she asked. I told her. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she said, "Olivia, I need you to tell me what just happened in terms I can process. I think Maggie Thorne just told me I'm the real thing." "Correct," said Dominique. "And you are going to cry about it later in the hotel, and that is completely fine. But right now, we are going to go back out there, because there's a dinner and I am starving." I laughed. The first real laugh of that whole enormous night. My father found me near the end of the evening. The dinner was winding down, the room getting looser, people in clusters saying goodbye. He appeared at the edge of my periphery, and this time I waited. He looked tired in a way I hadn't noticed before, older than I expected. He had a glass of something amber in his hand, and he turned it slowly. "Your score," he said. I listened to some of it on the drive here. I waited. "It's good, Olivia." He said it with the careful difficulty of a man lifting something heavy. It's actually very good." 9 years. That was what stretched between the kitchen doorway with the Berklee letter and this hotel ballroom in Los Angeles. 9 years of festivals and licensing deals and late nights and one phone call asking for free music and a Grammy on the table between us. "Thank you," I said. And I meant it. And I also knew that it wasn't enough. Not because I was punishing him, but because it's good spoken 9 years later in a ballroom doesn't undo the weight of the kitchen. It doesn't give back the Christmases. It doesn't reach the girl who practiced until he said, "That's enough for tonight." He seemed to understand that, or at least to be standing near the edge of understanding it. His jaw moved and nothing came out for a moment. Then he said, "I didn't know what to do with you." "I know," I said. "I know you didn't." And that, strangely, was the most honest thing we had ever said to each other. I did not hug him. I did not close the distance. But I stayed where I was, and I let the words sit. And after a moment, he nodded. Once, slowly, the way people nod when they mean something and don't have the language for it, and walked away. My brother did not speak to me that night. In the months that followed, the series won 3 additional awards. I signed on to score 2 more projects, one with Meridian and one with a completely different production company, reaching out on the strength of my name. The NPR piece ran again, updated, with a headline I won't quote because it still makes me feel strange and glad in equal measure. Dominique and I started a production company together the following spring. We called it Clearwater Sound. She handles the business and the contracts and the particular brand of calm authority that keeps clients from spiraling. I write the music. My father sent a card when the company launched. It said, "Congratulations." Sounds like a real venture. I put it on my desk. I don't know exactly why. Not as a trophy, not as a scar, maybe just as evidence that things can shift, even slowly, even incompletely. That people can move even a quarter of an inch in the right direction. And sometimes that's all you're going to get, and sometimes that's enough. What I know is this. The piano my mother put my hands on is still in my parents' house in Dayton. Last Christmas, the first one I'd gone back to in 6 years, I sat down at it. The bench wobbled a little. Some of the keys were slightly off pitch, and I played the opening theme from The Weight of the Wheat, the motif that Maggie Thorne had called poetry. In my mother's living room on my mother's piano, alone, while my father stood in the doorway and listened without saying a word. He didn't say it was enough for tonight. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, and I kept playing. And the house was finally, after all those years, quiet in the right way. The way that feels like a held breath finally released. Like something long overdue settling into place at last. I am not waiting for his approval anymore. I haven't been for a long time. But I'll be honest with you, I'm glad he heard it.